TOMz.
It means it's time for Mzansi's one and only Science and Tech Entertainment Hotspot.
Well, it is the one and only TOMz, SABC One Mzansi for sure.
This amazing show is proudly brought to you by the good guys at the SABC Education.
In my opinion, that Mzansi TV screens actually have to offer.
I go by the name of Usia, and right next to me is Bongi Sipo and Bongi for short.
Now I know this is always the case.
And why is that exactly?
Because we are talking about the building block of all living things, the cell.
We have a lot to uncover on this one, and here's a sneak peek of what you can expect. What exactly is the cell and what is it made up of? Join us as we learn more about the stem cells to find out what the big hype around them is. Ever heard of skin grafting? And check out some awesome apps for your mobile device. Get some inspirational words of advice from Indonesians. Let's get this party started. Now this tiny thing called the cell sounds very complicated like me.
Yes, but what is a biological cell?
Biological cell?
Yeah.
I think it's a cell that functions in your body.
Biological what?
Cell. What are some of the components of cells?
Cells, components eswathola kuma cells. It's just that ukuthi a fight some diseases emzimbeni wethu.
Scientifically?
Yeah.
It's a cell in which it is from two people, like it makes one thing. Blood, right?
Okay.
Stem cell.
What's a stem cell? Fresh, what's a stem cell?
Stem cell?
Yeah.
I think it's a cell that is found in a plant.
A stem cell. It's something that makes up something.
Okay, but what is unicellular organism?
Unicellular organism?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yo, those were very interesting responses, Winabongi. What I really found interesting though was the fact that they are unicellular organisms.
And every organism to have millions, billions, or even trillions of these cells.
I know, right? It does make a lot of sense because we were once a single cell when we were just a fertilized egg, or should I say rather a zygote in our mother's bodies.
Hey, I guess you come here, we get ahead of ourselves.
The cell is the most basic structure to any living organism, whether it's an animal, a plant, or even bacteria. Now the cell has a cytoplasm, a gel-like substance that basically houses the organelles, which are the cell's internal substructures. All this is enclosed inside the membrane, which is the cell's cover. Now there are two different types of cells, the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes. The major difference between the two is that the eukaryote cells have a nucleus that stores their genetic information, the DNA basically, and the prokaryote cells do not have this. The eukaryote cells are found in animals and plants, whereas the prokaryote cells are more for bacteria and algae.
Into zygotes and all those really in-depth things and teaching us.
Let's do exactly that. This time, no question. Have you guys ever heard of stem cells?
Well, if you haven't, then we've always got you covered. Check this out, it's stem cells, guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Yvonne Holt. I am the Medical Director at NetCells Biosciences. We process and store stem cells as well as other human tissues. The stem cells that we store are extracted from umbilical cord blood that is taken from a baby at birth. So stem cells are found in our bone marrow. And many years ago, scientists discovered that we can collect those stem cells from the bone marrow to transplant into somebody else, where those cells will regenerate that person's bone marrow. Now, in time, it was discovered that there are stem cells in the umbilical cord blood of a newborn baby. These stem cells are the same stem cells as those in the bone marrow. The cord blood and cord tissue is collected at the birth of the baby by the doctors and midwives. It is then sent here to NetCells, where we receive it and barcode each unit to ensure that there is traceability of the unit throughout the process, to make sure that we store the right cells for the right patient. So stem cells are the original building blocks of our human bodies. When an egg and sperm come together to form a baby, they form one cell. This cell then divides into a group of cells which are known as stem cells. From these stem cells stem each of our organs and tissues that make up the body. These stem cells still remain in our bodies throughout our lives and are used to maintain and repair our bodies as we grow and get older. The processing of the cord blood happens in the SABC machine. This is a very big centrifuge that spins the blood down at a very high rate, which then separates the blood into all its different components. The very top layer contains the stem cells, and those stem cells are then collected into the small stem cell bag. For a stem cell transplant to happen, there has to be a match, a tissue match between the donor and the recipient. So, if you have stored your own stem cells at birth, you will essentially be able to use those later in life for yourself because it was originally from your body. But now, if your brother or sister needed to use those stem cells for a transplant, we would have to do a test to see if you are a tissue match. There is a 25% chance that you will be an exact match to your brother or sister. The stem cells that we collect from the umbilical cord blood are the same as those collected from adult bone marrow, and they are called hemopoietic stem cells. Hemopoietic means blood forming. Therefore, hemopoietic stem cells will form all the blood cells of the body: red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Now, the bone marrow is the factory where all these blood cells are produced. So a stem cell transplant will regenerate bone marrow, which will then in turn produce the blood cells. The frozen cord blood is stored in these big tanks that are filled with liquid nitrogen. The cord blood units are placed in these racks that are numbered and labeled and are placed into the tanks for a very, very long time. Okay. The cord blood and cord tissue stem cells are stored at a cryogenic temperature of between minus 194 degrees and minus 196 degrees. At this very low temperature, all the metabolic processes of the cells are stopped. The cell almost stops living, but is not dead. When the cells are needed, we thaw the cells to normal room temperature, and the cells then come back to life. So far, around the world, stem cells have been stored for about 25 years in their frozen state. We only started freezing stem cells in the late 80s. Now, theoretically, these cells can be stored forever frozen, but time still has to pass to prove that concept.
Cells is cool, but they were that cool.
Fair too, and guess what, ne? There's even more of that coming your way. Ever heard of skin grafting? Well, join us as we learn what they are all about. Can you believe that there is actually 3D printed skin? Well, all this and more after the break.
TOMz.
Masibuyele ke bafethu and we're still entertaining Mzansi because that's ukuthini into yethu leyo.
Njalo kanye it's your girl Bongisipho and your boy Msirara.
On the freshest sci-tech show on the land in Mzansi, ngikhuluma ngani ngikhuluma teenagers on a mission right here on SABC One Mzansi for sure.
Nake bethi nani kaloku le nkqubo itshisa ble. Siphathwe ngabantu banalintweyo abaqulunqa inkqubo SABC Education.
Namhlanje ke we find ourselves right in the cell. The biological cell, not the other cell.
Wow, see, yeah, that was dry, hey? Anyway, guys, moving right along.
Ouch, Bongi.
I was right. Guys, we fundile about how cells are and the building blocks of all living organisms.
And how the knowledge of stem cells have allowed people to do some really amazing things.
Chalo kanye, but guess what?
Up next, we'll look at an interesting practice known as skin grafting.
Skin is taken from one place and somehow grown into more skin and placed in areas where the skin has been greatly damaged.
That's very right, Bongine. It's unfortunate that Lana Mzansi we have abantwana abancane who suffered really severe burn wounds, and processes like skin grafting can help lead normal lives again.
To touchdown Johannesburg, we're still on our mission bafethu saqhubeka ngetopic yethu namhlanje. Sizovakashela abochwepheshe abodokotela abazichazela kabanzi ukuthi what exactly is skin grafting. Well, it's you and me in this mission. What are we still waiting for? Let's get it. We're still about our mission, and namhlanje saqhubeka ngetopic yethu ama-cells. Sizovakashela udokotela wethu uzichazela kabanzi on exactly what is skin grafting. Hey doc, how are you doing?
Fine, thanks, and you, Katie?
Good, good. Welcome to TOMz.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so doc, can you please explain to us what exactly do you do, and can you tell us who you are?
I'm Dr. Alexandra Grubnik. I'm a plastic and reconstructive surgeon in Johannesburg.
Okay, so doc, we want to know exactly what is skin grafting.
So skin grafting is when you transfer the skin from the donor side to the recipient bed. You would usually use it if there's a wound. It can be secondary to the removal of cancer or burns or infection. There's different types of skin grafting. You can use either split thickness or a full thickness skin graft.
Okay, what's the difference between the two?
So it refers to how much skin we actually take. So as you perhaps are aware, skin consists of epidermis and dermis. So if we take the epidermis and just partial thickness of the dermis, so we're leaving some dermis behind, that would be a split thickness skin graft.
Okay, so doc, can you tell us the process and how it works?
If you're doing a split thickness skin graft, you would use it mostly for very large surface area wounds, such as from burns, for instance. Okay, in that case, our main priority is to cover the wound. To take the graft, we use either a machine called a dermatome or a special knife that we can also use. So in essence, once we've taken the skin, the donor side looks like, in essence, an abrasion, like you would get from road burns. Okay, then the skin is usually prepared by either meshing, depending on what surface area we need to cover. Okay, then we would place the graft on the prepared recipient bed, which is the wound, and we would secure the graft with skin clips. And then there's a special dressing that goes on top of the graft to prevent infection, and also a special dressing that goes on top of the donor site to promote re-epithelialization or healing of the donor site.
Okay, so I want to know, doc, let's say I have a burn on my hand and I decide that I don't want to remove any other skin on my body, and I ask my mother to donate skin to cover up my burn on my hand. Can that work?
Unfortunately, that's not going to work, because even though it's your mother and she's related to you and your genotype, your genes are probably similar, however, it's a different human being, so your body will still view that skin as foreign skin and your body will reject that skin. So the only scenario where you could use somebody else's skin is actually used as a temporary biological dressing. So for instance, if a person has extensive burns, then you can temporarily cover those wounds with cadaveric skin, okay, which would help to just contain the wound temporarily until the patient is stable enough for his own skin grafting.
Okay, so doc, tell me, after the skin grafting takes place, what do you do to take care of the wound?
Okay, so there's a special dressing that goes on the skin graft, which is placed on the wound. Okay, because you need to allow for the skin graft, for the initial stages of the skin graft to take place, for the vessels to start actually aligning to each other. Normally we would open on day 5 and see how the skin graft is looking, and then it gets dressed on alternate days. Okay. Can sometimes also use negative pressure dressing or a suction dressing placed on the skin graft. It's very useful because it actually splints the graft in place.
Okay, so let's say now I removed skin from my thigh. Does it leave a scar?
Everything leaves a scar. Okay, that's rule number one of every surgery. And funny enough, we as plastic surgeons frequently get asked, "What will the operation leave a scar?" And unfortunately, the answer is yes. So any operation leaves a scar. Okay, it does recover to a large extent. So the skin just over time heals on its own. Usually takes, so it's 6 months to a year. You would have a stable scar, but you would still be able to see the area where the skin graft was taken.
You all know that 3D printing skin is the big craze at the moment. Now get this, a group of students from Canada have developed 3D printed skin. Severe burns often cause damage to both the epidermis and the dermis layers of the skin, which have different cells and cell structures, meaning they have to be treated separately. Their solution? Printing 2 artificial layers of skin in a liquid form that come together to form one gel with all the cells needed to treat deep skin wounds. Though this technology is still in its experimental phase, imagine all the difference it could make.
Remember, Nani, talk about the power of science and technology. Big up!
Kabanga, if people are already doing such right now, imagine all the other things that the future holds.
Knowledge truly is power. So, and let's exchange ideas with each other.
And also check out the story called Gray's Donation on our social media pages. Some really, really cool stuff. You should know where to find us, right?
But Nani, for now, and let us see you after this.
That's why I thought we go back in time with this Fundekabanza about the history of our knowledge of the cell, get some useful apps for you guys out there, and get some cool advice from Moktope Shebet Namhlanje. Stay tuned, we're coming back right after this.
Welcome, the TOMZ viewers.
Now this is still the one and the only TOMZ. SABC 1 Mzansi for sure. SABC Education City Donkey.
Namhlanje, we've been learning quite a lot about the building blocks of all living organisms, the cell.
Why I guess some really cool things that people have actually done of the cells as.
I mean, I still can't get over the 3D printed skin.
It's too crazy, guys. Like, it's too awesome. But get in here and just kind of see. Look at.
Now the idea of the cell had been around for a while. Robert Hooke first discovered the cell all the way back in 1665, thanks to the invention of the microscope. Though what he saw were actually dead cells. The first man to witness a live cell under a microscope was Anton van Leeuwenhoek in 1674. Fast track a few centuries later to the year 1839, Matthias Schleiden, with the help of Theodore Schorn, was able to come to the conclusion that cells make up all living organisms. It was around this time that Rudolf von Shaw stated that all cells only arise from pre-existing cells. Fast forward again to the 1950s, where George Otto Gay grew and maintained the first continuous cell line to be cultured outside of a living organism.
Now, how knowledge of things like cells has kept changing through iminyaka.
And that actually, Wenabong, is the beauty of science. Now, theories are proved and disproved for the benefit of society.
Why again, each theory builds on the theory before that, almost like how a new cell is born from an existing cell.
Which means that you cannot come up with new theories if you don't know the existing ones.
About the existing theories.
Check out this really cool app using an iCell that allows you to get a 3D view of what a cell looks like. So you can choose from my animals and my plants or even bacteria who's born for yourself exactly what it looks like in there. Or maybe get yourself an A-level biology app, which is really cool. Wow, this one is for all you biology geniuses who want to brush up your knowledge after studying or a day before acing an exam. How cool is that?
If now I get then you've come just to the right place. I think a career as a biotechnologist would be just the career to choose.
A biotechnologist is a scientist that studies characteristics of cells in living organisms, then modifies them for product development or scientific research. For this field, you will need to study a BSc in biochemistry and chemistry, which needs a minimum APS of 31. To advance in the field, we suggest that you get a postgraduate degree in the field.
Manje kochwepheshe sebekhulumile, and we have brought their wise words to you. Now all you have to do is go out there and achieve your dreams.
Injalo ke masike siphinde ke bethi nasifumana some words of inspiration from iy'ndwendwe zethu, because kaloku there is no such thing as too much motivation. Uyayikhawukumamela apha ke.
If you are interested in working with stem cells, there are many levels at which one can be involved in the industry. One can be involved as a medical technologist, working in the lab, processing the cells. Or one can be involved as a scientist with an honours degree, a master's degree, or a PhD in research of stem cells and finding out ways in which one can use these cells. One can work in a commercial laboratory, such as NetCells, or one can work in a research laboratory, as you have at all the major universities in South Africa.
So guys, if you want to be a plastic surgeon, I've got the following career advice. It's a very, very long road and quite a difficult road. You have to do 6 years of medical school studies, then followed by internship, community service, medical officer time, general surgery time, and then finally plastic surgery time. But it is completely worth it. I love my job, and it is the most fantastic profession in the world, making people more beautiful.
1, 2, let's go.
Oh, yebo, yes, bafese sifike ma-social sessions wethu namhlanje la sikhuluma nawo ku-Facebook naku-Twitter namhlanje siphethe ba.
Facebook sinamdu uthi ke like, okay guys, I'm still working on the t-shirt. You did? Well ke wena mdu kaloku sizayithi announce by nini wena carry on watching rhoqo ngemivulana kwalwesibili ngensimbi yesine. Okay, sengisimane.
Ukarabo ke nowesibili uthi na, can you please talk about train drivers on your next episode please? Well, asazi ke keep watching TOMz. Kwazi bani singathi nje kusasa sikhulume ngama train drivers. Or kanjani Bongi?
Hayi njalo kanye bethu nani balifuna ufana nami kaloku Facebook TOMz, ku-Twitter @TOMz_SABC_1 naku-Instagram kaloku TOMzTV_SABC1. So sithini? Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, zonke bonke siyabulele.
And just like that, we have reached the end of today's dosage of ultimate edutainment.
And I know for a fact that you guys enjoyed this one because I surely did, eh?
Mina ke I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth. So please do let us know ukuthi wena ucabangeni ngeshow yethu yanamhlanje. On Facebook we are simply TOMz, on Twitter TOMz_SABC_1, on Instagram @TOMzTV_SABC1.
But give it nani for now, we have to love you and leave you.
See you next time. Coming up next time on TOMz.
Siphila ngaphandle kwaye bethu nani siphefumula kuyo sifumana ke inkcukacha ezivesha about the Earth's atmosphere.
What are wind tunnels and why they're so insanely cool? Well, let's take a look at the CSIR.
Singaphatha ngcono njani kaloku ilizwe lethu and inspire change. We find out with an incredible Mzansi project.
And learn why mountaintops are sometimes covered in snow when it isn't snowing anywhere else.
Ungaphosa kwena kaloku TOMz rhoqo ngemivulana ngolwesibini ngensimbi yesine ngqo inhloko apha ku-SABC1 Mzansi for sure.